Matt Moreman is the creator of Obsessed Garage, sitting at almost 300,000 subscribers and 54 million total channel views. Matt has turned his obsession into a legitimate media outlet. Obsessed Garage has become a place to share the ownership experience of the amazing things that go on in and around Matt's sanctuary, the garage. Matt is a lifelong car enthusiast who has turned his passion into a thriving business. Besides his YouTube channel, there is also ObsessedGarage.com, where you can buy anything you need for your garage, from power tools and beyond. He also has a podcast called Dialed In, where him and his friend explore obsession in all of its advantages and challenges, but especially about cars and garages. Those are their expertise. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm always down to chat about myself.
Right on. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, your BMW E92 M3, your kind of story regarding that car. I think, so when we talk about succeeding on YouTube, I think it can help to have a kind of like a one thing that you're focusing on, clearly that has kind of been a, I don't want to say a centerpiece of your life, but like it was a big deal in your life. And it motivated you to kind of get where you are today. So like, how did you go from having this really obsessed vision and love of a car to kind of building a YouTube channel off of that, and a business as well?
Well, I didn't really have an agenda. I found that most people that are now content creators fell into it in some way. So for me, in 2014, I had a really rough time with my first diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder. People misconstrue OCD as like an organizational thing. That's not what it is. It's crushing issues that generally driven by anxiety that can cause disruptions in your life. And so in 2014, I had a really big financial practice. I had lots of responsibility. I had sort of taken the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I had recognized that I'd kind of closed everybody out. And believe it or not, it was a therapist, this like goofy therapist that I met, who I would have dismissed prior to melting down. But since I was in meltdown mode, me and the therapist kind of came to the conclusion that I needed to make some friends. And so I have an engineering background, and so what every good engineer does is create a spreadsheet. I figured out, what's the most efficient way I can meet the most amount of people possible. And so I started journaling my life. At the time, I had an F80 M3, which is a 2015 M3, and I had a GT3, blue 991.1 GT3, so it was a 2014 GT3. And I started journaling my ownership experience of that on the forums. Forums have kind of very quickly died off, but forums were very popular in 2014. And at some point, it became annoying to write everything. And so I set up my Canon 5D Mark III, or I think 5D Mark II at the time, didn't even have autofocus. And I set up the camera because I was trying to teach people how to wash a car, in my journals. And then it turned into this thing that's become my life, which is to share whatever I'm interested in my garage. And it's quickly turned into this little empire that I built, which is pretty awesome. So my focus is not on the video content engagement. My focus is on being authentic, and then I let the chips fall where they may. So I'd probably be much better off if I shut my mouth and did donuts in my GT3. I'd probably have a lot more subscribers, but I don't want a job. I want a life. I want to be authentic and to share what it is I have a passion for. And so I feel like that's a slower, longer game, but I think it's certainly more fulfilling for me personally. And so that's how I fell into making videos. And then I quickly recognized that the videos were much more engaging than doing copy, writing copy on on forums. And so I turned my attention to the channel, and then the channel eventually led me into the realization that the things that I'm passionate about and I'm interested in, other people don't know anything about. And so I could really provide the world with some value, and then the world, could choose to subscribe to that or not. And so people have voted with their wallet, and they buy lots of cool stuff from me, which has afforded me the ability to leave my financial career behind and just focus on this.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a wonderful story. So you obviously you get this diagnosis that is a lot to deal with, and you are kind of able to do something with it. You made spreadsheets and journaled, and then this channel kind of became a catharsis for you in a way, it sounds like. So, like, do you have any advice for somebody who, let's say they got a mental health diagnosis recently and they're kind of like struggling to figure out like their next step? Like you've clearly managed to figure out how to like arrange your mind in a way that is now much more helpful for you. So how do you think somebody in your position like 8 years ago could take their first step into recovery?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with be willing to change up your pattern. Especially if you're struggling with something to do with mental health. I mean, a lot of times you just repeat the same bad behaviors over and over and over again. For me, the behavior was to just do everything myself, stay at it on my own, not let anybody in, and that clearly is a destructive behavior. And so the biggest change, the biggest epiphany for me was recognizing that if I invite others in, whether it's just by making a video and sharing my thoughts or physically inviting somebody to do something, that it not only changes my perspective and gives me an opportunity to spend some time and get out of my own head, but it validates other people as well. And so the big epiphany early on was I just invited people to do stuff. Prior to that, I had this weird feeling like I'll help you move, but if I would never ask you to help me move, because then I'd owe you something, and you probably wouldn't do it right anyway. And so I had all this baggage to go with this like all this arrogance around I don't want anybody to help me because they won't do it right. And when I let all that go, because I really didn't have a choice, I was really struggling, I changed up my pattern. So it changed how I was doing things. And then the video stuff was an outlet. And so I think that if, since this is about video and content creation, your podcast, the outlet for me was that, but I had stumbled into it because I like cameras and I like the things that I'm talking about. And so it was a real natural fit. Like my videos early on, I don't know how long you've been messing around with on YouTube, but you had to get special permission to make a video of 15 minutes or longer. So
right,
you couldn't make a video over 15 minutes. You had to get fill out an application and get it approved. But those
were the days.
Yeah, I would set the camera up for 50 minutes straight and talk nonstop. No break, no script, no cut, just straight. And so I recognized that I had some form of talent, and I just stumbled upon that thing because not everybody can do this. I think everybody can do this, but certainly people couldn't do it my way or your way or somebody else's way. You'd have to figure out when you do change your pattern, what way works for you. And you'll know because if it's if you're watching back, I found myself extremely entertaining, right? So when I'm editing my videos, I'm like, I liked watching my own videos. And if I didn't like it, then other people like me weren't going to like it. And so that's how I knew I was onto something. So if you're cringing editing yourself, you're not engaged in your own edit, in your own video, then the people that you want to engage with aren't going to like it either. So I think that was a big epiphany and requisite for me.
For sure. And I like what you said about changing your patterns. I think like so many of us, like most people, including myself, like we have these patterns that we do every day, these habits, and some of them are good, some of them are bad. And I think if you're in a place where your mental health is really suffering, which definitely in the past, I've had situations like that as well, where there was a prolonged period of time where I was not feeling great. And the only thing I also found that helped was to change my patterns and kind of recognize the negative things I was doing to myself and maybe even the people around me, or just kind of how I looked at the world. And then I tried to do the opposite, essentially.
That's a good way to do it. Just go opposite and figure out a way to make a contribution with that, that negative.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, how can I help people around me and kind of connect as well? Because that was something I've struggled with in the past as well, is kind of like sharing my feelings and connecting with people around me and kind of feeling like I want to do things by myself. And it takes time to kind of change your ways and to actually see for yourself what it feels like to live a life where you are connecting with people. But then kind of once you get to the other side, or at least close enough to the other side, it becomes clear, like, oh my God, like I can change. I can be this person. And I'm really happy for you that you've been able to kind of put this into videos and put it online and kind of have this community sprouting up. And it's really it's a wonderful thing. And the fact that you're able to, that you've left your finance job and career and you're able to make a full-time living, I'm wondering, so could you tell us a bit about your business of what you do now? So of course you have your YouTube channel, but you also have a website, and kind of tell us what your career is like these days.
So, YouTube is the top of the funnel, right? So that's where I enroll, engage. That's where I put my thoughts out there. That's where I share my life and my passion with people. And then the, Instagram, Facebook, I view as like sort of the next layer. Now, I'm just, this is my analysis of what I'm doing. I didn't like set out to build some marketing funnel or something like that. This is just, if I'm looking at it from a different vantage point, from like a business vantage point, YouTube is where I engage people. It's the top of the funnel. It's where I meet people. And then Instagram and Facebook are two places where I would build upon that. And then from there, in order to allow other people to engage, I have Facebook groups. So we have like a 45,000 member Facebook group, and then I have like a private Inside the Hex. We call it Inside the Hex. So you have to be a Hex member in order to be able to do that. I built my own membership platform, which is another layer below, like sort of another, I guess, level up in engagement, where people get to see my life. So I vlog there weekly, like I'm shooting a vlog here today. So I'll shoot a vlog or two a week, and I talk about sort of the business and who I'm hiring and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So talk more personal stuff there. And then from there, we have ObsessedGarage.com. And so ObsessedGarage.com is where I deliver the products that I'm using that are underrepresented. So for example, recently here, which may not make sense because it's Obsessed Garage, but I found some closets. Like your closet, your master bedroom closet. And I hate the experience of buying a closet. You go to this goofy place, and then you call someone, and then they call you back 3 weeks later, and they come out to your house and they measure, and then they design it all wrong. They don't actually listen to you, and then you have to redesign it 2 or 3 times. And by the way, all this process, you're 3, 4, 5 weeks in, and no one's ever explained anything about price. Like, what is this going to cost? And then you get done, and it's $38,000, and you thought it was going to be $3,800. Right, it's that ridiculous. Like you're like, okay, I'm maybe in at like $7,500. I think I could stomach that, and it's $38,000, and that's how the experience goes with closets. It's the most annoying thing ever.
Was that an actual number that somebody gave you?
Oh yeah. That's happened many times before. I go through this whole thing, weeks
Oh my God.
and weeks, and they never tell you. So just freaking be transparent with me and say, bro, I think this clause is going to cost you like 25 or 30 grand to do this, because it's such an astronomical number and it's so different than what you would think it would be. But if you knew ahead, you could then make a decision. Look, I'm not going to go through this process. And so I see an opportunity where there's a huge mistake in the world, and that this is the way it's done. And then every other company copies every other company, and they all do the same thing. And so my job in this world is to curate products that my obsessiveness, my OCD, if you will, my obsessive compulsive disorder makes me good at. I'm very passionate about it. You can see me talking faster and getting all animated. And so I can take something like a closet and then figure out the way I would want to buy it. And then, first of all, it has to be something I want to buy, and then figure out how would I want to buy it, and then build that system. And so my entire website is built on it. So it started with detailing, and that actually started with a pressure washer, a single pressure washer. And I bought this obscure pressure washer used for meat packing plants and chicken hatcheries and industry. It was made in Germany, had a weird name, and I didn't even know how to pronounce it, but I took a flyer on it. I bought it. It was $1,200, and I wanted to use it to wash my car. And then I bought some fittings from Italy and some parts from China and some pieces from the US, and I put together this hodgepodge thing over several years, and I recognized that people want to buy that. They wanted what I had. And so I figured out how to make it so that you can go on there and just click the button and we send it to you. And so I sell everything to do with the garage, and now I'm branching out, building a sister company that has to do with the house, because the garage is the anchor of the house, but you still walk through the garage door and you go into the kitchen and you go outside. And so I'm sharing my experience with all these things, like this desk here. Like I'm really good at putting desks together and buying. There's acoustic panels behind me, and so all this stuff is so underrepresented and not marketed well. And so I think through my funneling system, if you will, through my way of sharing passion, that I can provide the world value, and then they can vote as a result with their money, and then I get to make money. And so that's what I do all day, is I search for products that I want to buy personally, and then I figure out how to provide a better solution to people with those products, because the products are generally stuff that you wouldn't be able to find. My obsession affords me the ability to find them. I don't know how or why, but I spend 2 or 3 hours a day sitting on a couch watching something with my laptop on my lap, and I'm learning, reading, discovering, finding. That's my happy place. And so Obsessed Garage is the business manifestation of those 3 hours a day for 42 years of my life, proverbially spent jerking around looking for stuff that I wanted to spend money on that I didn't have. So that's basically what this brand has become. And, people find it somewhat interesting, but it's a very niche, it's a very specific type of people. And I've been very, very careful to stick to that formula and not chase numbers and likes and subscribes and all of that, because that doesn't mean anything.
And I mean, your mind is going to be a lot clearer as well when you're thinking like that, because it sounds like your community is an important thing. You have this big Facebook group, and you're in touch with the people who watch your videos and who like your company. And when you start looking at numbers, you would begin attracting different kinds of people into your community and into your orbit, so to speak. And that could be good, but it also might not be. And I think the ring of authenticity is definitely helping you here and helping you play the long game for sure. I also think what you said about taking things that you get obsessed with, like whether it's acoustic panels or closets and closet organization, like these things that seem really specific that I think a lot of people don't talk about. And then you kind of trust yourself enough to realize that, hey, if this is something that I feel like could be way better, then other people probably feel the same way. And I think when you like act on that in a consistent and real way, acting on your own thoughts and feelings about certain things, then it can really like, I don't know, it feels good. It feels really good. Like you're living your best life, so to speak.
I think the general theme of a true entrepreneur is that you create solutions to problems people didn't know they had. And then your job is to sell them on why this is a problem. And the things that I'm solving, I don't even have to sell them. They just, as soon as you identify. So it's more of identifying a solution to a problem that people didn't know they had. As soon as you identify it, the light bulb goes off. Oh yeah. And my fear in the beginning was as soon as I identify it, people are going to run with it. They're going to steal my ideas. And so I used to get really bent out of shape about that and really anxious about that until I recognized it's freaking hard to create the solution. The identification is actually the easy part. The hard part is then delivering on it. And so that's been the real cool thing. The frustrating thing is there are some people who do take that and copy it, but I move so fast and have so much passion for it, it would be impossible to keep up with me. So I've learned to just accept that.
Right on. Yeah, acceptance is a powerful thing, huh? So I did want to make sure, did your YouTube channel come before your company's,
yes.
Like ObsessedGarage.com? Okay,
yeah,
so it was as soon as you...
Yeah, the YouTube channel in 2014 was Matt Moreman. 2015, it was Matt Moreman. 2016 is when I called it, changed the name to Obsessed Garage. So I had made 1,500 to 1,200 videos on YouTube before I ever even called it something. And then I made a T-shirt in like 2000, like late 2016. Some version of this Obsessed Garage shirt that I'm wearing now, and that became the brand then. And now it's sort of transcending me. That Obsessed Garage, there are people who know Obsessed Garage but don't know Matt Moreman. And that number grows exponentially, the number of people who identify with the brand because they were introduced by somebody who knows Matt Moreman from being engaged. And so that's really that's part of the reason why I didn't want to call it Matt's Garage or something like that. I wanted to create a long-term intergenerational brand that could transcend me.
And did you notice a shift in how your videos were perceived when you changed to more of a brand than your name?
The first time I launched, so in January 2017, that pressure washer I was telling you about, it was 13 parts and pieces, like little parts and pieces. So I made 13 videos. Some were 2 minutes, some were 3 minutes, some were 8 minutes of each part and piece. And then I made a 14th video of the package. And I put all those videos up at once. Like instantly, like right now. And I lost like 5,000 subscribers. I think I had 70,000 or something at the time. And people were like, screw this. This guy's jumped the shark. He's just trying to sell me something. And so I've had infinite pushback since day one of all different things that, what people are always trying to figure out your angle. And no matter how authentic you are about it, most people don't have a good barometer for authenticity. They don't realize when they're being duped, and they don't realize when they're not being duped. And so that's probably the most misunderstood thing about me is that I literally tell you exactly what I'm doing and what my motives are for doing stuff and share the numbers and share the profit and the loss and all that stuff. And yet there's still a large percentage of people who don't even recognize that I'm being truthful. There's no ulterior motive. I've told you my motive up front. And when you do that, see, this is where, I have many, many friends that are content creators that have much, much more vast audiences. They just keep all that stuff to themselves, which is a smarter move if you're looking for just pure engagement, ad revenue, if you're looking for numbers, people. I just have chosen a different path, which is to just lay it on thick. Honest. And not to say that other people are being dishonest. They just are more artful about how they craft their messaging, how they craft their personality. They leave the best parts in, which is probably more intelligent from a long-term perspective. But to me, in my world, that would feel like a job. I don't want a job.
Sure. It's more work for sure.
Yeah,
Like editing, cutting up a video, adding some fancy music, and cutting to inspiring stock footage.
That's an assumption that the people that are watching you are too stupid to make up their own opinion, their own decision, to create their. I don't like that word opinion, but to have their own experience of what it is, whatever message you're having. So you think that those people are stupid, which they're probably right. Most people, like I said, don't have a good barometer for this sort of thing. And so the way to do it is to just put your best foot forward. I chose to put both feet in, head first. This is me. This is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm. And so could you tell us a little more about that period of time when you changed from Matt Moreman to Obsessed Garage? I'm guessing this coincided with the launch of your website, where you started being able to sell products. Like, what was your strategy there of like getting people from your YouTube channel to check out your website? And then obviously it was a successful launch. Tell us about like how your mind was working during that time and what your goals were.
So we all know somebody, you probably could think of a half a dozen people in your life that are quote entrepreneurs, and they quit their job, they leverage their future, they failed, they quit, they live on people's couches, they have this idea. They're the people, that very rarely ever succeeds. There are only so many Elon Musks and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs of the world, right? But we all know people that are like that, have that entrepreneurial side to them, where they just quit life because they have to chase that great idea, and they bounce from idea to idea to idea to idea. A great example of that, if you're a subscriber to Apple TV and you watch WeWork, the WeWork and whatever it's called, We something or other. The doc did We Crashed, where he's just all over the place trying to sell baby goods and all these things, but he hits on something that really works. Well, that is like the antithesis of who I am as a human. I just can't. I cannot do that. I just don't have that in me. I don't have that ability to do that thing. And so when I built the website was not an idea. The website wasn't a plan. It wasn't some entrepreneurial pursuit. I had no intention of quitting my job. I had no intention of like, I'm going to create this thing and then create a demand for it. The demand had come to me. So I'm making videos, I'm sharing these obscure products, I'm getting email after email after email of, can you send me links? Where do you get this? How do I buy that? How do I set it up? Where can I get it? Where do I buy it? Where can I get it? Where do I buy it? And it was just ringing in my ears until eventually I got so annoyed with answering that question that I'm like, actually what happened was I would send the links, and then even that would confuse them. So I built a little macro where I just cut and paste. Here's where you get it. Here's all the links, 13 different links to 13 different places all over the world. And then people couldn't even figure that out. I'm like, you know what? I've got to build a website to house all of this information in one spot, because people wanted to put timestamps in the cards in the video and put it in the description, and they wanted me to do that. And I just didn't want to do it. I just wasn't interested in it. But there was a very clear, ringing in my ear that people wanted this. And so I built ObsessedGarage.com as a way to put all that and aggregate that all in one spot, make my life easier, create a solution to a problem that now people were identifying to me that the world had. And then I needed a website name. That's why I created it Obsessed Garage, because I needed a name. So this was all not out of that couch surfing entrepreneur. This was like a natural progression. Like this happened naturally. Instead of me trying to force it on the world, I identified a need that the world had. And so then I built the website in response to that. So this is a very engineer type C entrepreneurial path, and that I didn't have an idea that I wanted to pitch to you. The idea just came naturally. It was a natural progression to then build the site. I don't ask people to go to the site. I don't ask people to like. I don't ask people to subscribe. I don't do the things that everybody else does. I do it my way, which is just to focus on value, and then hope that the thing works out. Money is just a result of value. And so the money comes as a result of me identifying these problems. So that's how it happened. So in January 2017, I launched those 13 videos. I lose 5,000 subscribers. I'm like, oh crap, I messed up this time. And I had 200 emails in my inbox saying, I want that as soon as you have it ready. And then I launched the pre-order a few days later and sold $50,000 worth of pressure washers that everybody, so not only is the world saying it's too much, the people around, friends, family, relatives, no one's going to buy a $1,600 pressure washer. The manufacturers were telling me no one's going to buy a $1,600 pressure washer. And yet validation, I bought a $1,600 pressure washer. I'm saying I'm stupid. That's the way I looked at it. Well, I'm not stupid and I want it. And everybody's telling me they want it. So I'm going to make it. And I beat the manufacturers into submission to allow me to sell their stuff, and the rest is history. We have a 6-month backlog, so I'm 4 years in, and I still don't have this darn pressure washer. We just sell, I think I have 500,000 of them waiting, $500,000 sitting there waiting. So there's 500 pressure washers waiting for them to come in. There's supply chain issues, but we take pre-orders on these things because we can never keep the stuff in stock because we're selling this obscure high-end stuff. So that's the story of it.
Right on. So how did you quote unquote beat the manufacturers into submission to let you do this? Was that persistence?
The funny thing is we'll sell well over $20 million this year in stuff. I say that to add context. So we'll we're a 4-year-old company doing 20 plus million in revenue, and I still can't convince companies to let me sell their stuff. They just say no. What is their hesitation? You're an e-commerce dealer. What they're concerned about their current business, their current customers complaining. And so I called Krenzla, the pressure washer manufacturer. They said no. I called MTM. They said no. I called Mosmatic. They said no. I called Ely. They said, yeah, maybe. And then I called, make up a name. I called one of the other manufacturers and they said, yeah, sure. So then I went back down the list. I called the maybe, said, hey, your competitor said yes. Okay, we say yes too. How much are you going to buy? I don't know. So I negotiated really crappy terms for myself and really crappy margins. And I just kind of used each other to convince them to let me, do this, and negotiated the worst terms ever. And just, so I had like a 30% margin or something like that. And that's how I was able to beat them in the submission to let me do this. And now, we've made Krenzla a household name in this niche, and of course I wasn't smart enough to negotiate the proper credit for that, but I'm learning, I'm learning how to do that now, where when I come in and choose something, and now the Obsessed Garage brand is behind something, that there's value. And so I negotiate, royalties and back ends and things like that on deals if to be able to sell. So not only do I have my own retail operation, I've got a wholesale business that I'm building, and I've got a real estate business that I'm building attached to all this. But the key to all of this is that I live one existence. There's just one day, one amount of time, one me. I don't work at all because I'm doing what I love, but I'm not running around like I don't have enough time ever. I just don't do that. So I just do whatever it is I feel like doing whenever I feel like doing it, because of I've lived one existence. But I figured out a way to leverage that one existence and keep a consistent single existence. So even though I'm doing stuff with real estate, and I'm doing stuff with wholesaling, and I'm doing stuff with developing products, it's all connected. I can do one thing, make one video, and it attaches to all these different businesses that are of interest to me.
So it sounds like it's much more easy for you to flow with what you're doing now than like your previous job, like your I guess original career, so to speak.
That wasn't passion. That was doing it for the money.
And so how does it feel being you these days versus those days?
Yeah, it's indescribable. Like I could not describe to you how amazing it is to do, wake up every day. I just have an innate, drive to me. So I create these needs to get things done, which nobody knows exists. So without that, that's another thing. Like if you don't have that innately, that innate driver, or that driver, or that instinct that I need, like this has to get done, that has to get done. Owning your own business could really eat you alive. So I create urgency and needs just naturally. That's part of the obsessiveness, part of the obsessive compulsive. But I would tell people, if anybody's watching this, and unless you're me, you can't do it my way. You have to do it your way. And so the words that I'm saying, you'd want to find out, what is your way of doing things? Because I guarantee, I'm such a weird oddball, there's just no way that anybody could do it this way. It's just not possible, because it's me. I'm sharing me and putting me out into the world, and you are different than me. And so you have to find out what's your me, what is it that you're designed to do, and stop freaking copying what everybody else is doing and do your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do, because it seems like everything's already been done. Right. But
yeah. And I think that's one thing people have trouble wrapping their head around. It almost sounds too good to be true. Like if you do exactly what you want to be doing the way you want to do it, the idea that that's going to work out, I think, is it sounds like a fairy tale to some people. But with YouTube specifically, it is YouTube, and it's in the long run going to serve you much better to stay true to yourself.
Yeah. Here's the bad part. Most people aren't talented. But you won't know unless you give it a go, right? It's like, you're familiar with Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD. Did you ever watch his YouTube channel?
He does like tech reviews, right?
He has 12 or 15 million subscribers. And there's a video on there, if you search, where he's probably talked about this several times. But people always ask him, how do I get to be you? And he says very candidly, to be honest, you can't. It's too late. He just happened to be super passionate about it. And he was a kid, and he started early, when it first started. So you can't be him. It's not possible. You can only be you. And the odds of you having it happen are much, much smaller than it was for him too, because there were many, many less people that are interested in this path. He didn't know that this could be a thing. I guarantee if you talk to Marquez, he didn't like sit down and create this grand plan of he's going to be the biggest thing in tech in the entire universe. There's no way. In fact, every person that I've met that's a successful creator, not one of them like sat down and crafted out what they're going to become. None. Zero. Yeah. So stop that nonsense. Just start, there's so many people like they make like 15 videos. We're going to do this big launch. For who? No one's going to watch it. Your mom's not even going to watch 15 videos. Just start putting stuff out there, and then fumble around and see, if you go watch my early videos, I'm way better now than I was then. So you do evolve, but there has to be some built-in talent somewhere. And a lot of times you won't know unless you try. But I mean, people, you kind of know if you can sing or not, right? Mm-hmm. You don't make you kind of know if you can play a guitar or not. Now, some people don't know that. You can watch American Idol, you can see some people that don't recognize that, and they lose their crap when somebody tells them that. But you won't know if you're any good at making videos and engaging people unless you try. And you have to try for a while, because you're going to get a little better at it the more you do it. But if you can't like sit there like you and I are having a fluid conversation, forget it. Can't. Unless maybe then you could figure out, well, I'm not good talking, so maybe I just do, there's a friend of mine who does nothing but like cinematic detailing, where he doesn't even talk. He's just sharing the spray bottles noise and the brushes sound, and you might have to be creative on what your talent is. And that's a hard thing to figure out. I didn't know what mine was. I didn't know I could sit in front of a camera and talk for 45 minutes straight. I had no idea until I did it, and then I tried it, and then I watched it back, and I found it interesting. And then but most people can't. Most people can't do it, but you won't know unless you give it a shot. I thought I was going to be a cyclist. I'm 6'2", 240. I'm not going to be a cyclist. I didn't know, but I didn't know until I tried to climb a mountain. And I was dying, and all the 5, 7, 150 pound guys were lapping me. I didn't know until I tried. Sometimes you can be an idiot. So.
Yeah, sometimes like even if it doesn't work out, now you know that that's not
it was
what
great.
you want to do.
Right.
And that's valuable information. It's really valuable.
Yes.
And I think one thing that trips people up a lot too, whatever they're doing, if they're trying to like pursue some passion, they're trying to discover their talent or whatever, a big pitfall that people fall into is they start falling in love with the idea of doing something as opposed to the actual act of showing up and doing it. Because when you actually show up consistently and do something, it's going to be different than how it's playing out in your head. So if you want to be a musician or something, I'm sure any aspiring musician has had visions of like being on stage and thousands of people cheering or whatever. But most of your time is going to be sitting in a room and just like writing a song or just kind of practicing by yourself with nobody watching.
All that and strumming the guitar string, playing the piano, there has to be a natural drive or gravitation toward that. I have a natural gravitation toward camera gear. I love cameras. I love computers. I love figuring things out but I don't love the creative aspect of trying to edit. So what I did is I figured out a way where I don't have to edit. I just do one take and just cut and add then that was part of my thing. I don't like freaking trying to involve music and do weird transitions and do EDM drops into like the next thing. I just don't like it. I don't like watching it. I don't like trying to figure it out. So I never really became an editor. But the video you'd mentioned when we first started this with the cinematic video we did, so I hired somebody who does. But I did that 4 or 5 years in. Now I hired a cinematographer to do that, but to do it in my style. But in the beginning, I wasn't interested in that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't have a passion for that. And if I had to like edit, like if I had to make videos and have it take 15 or 25 hours of edit time for every hour of footage, I wouldn't have made it. And so I had to figure out what my style was and what my thing was, and then I had to have some talent, or otherwise it wouldn't have worked. And don't misconstrue. I'm not using that word talent as like I'm better than you. It's just I have a talent. I was blessed with this, born with this thing that I've stumbled onto. So I think everybody has a talent. Not everybody has a talent to make videos in the traditional sense. And so if you don't have that traditional talent, the superpower would be figuring out what the non-traditional way to implement that talent is. And then I think Marquez's argument that not everybody could do what he did could be, you could overcome that objection by you discovering what your talent is. Chris Fix is probably the biggest car YouTuber. He's never shown his face. He's like 10 million subscribers, gets millions of views every video. And I don't even know what he looks. No one even knows what he looks like. Never shown his face. Maybe he doesn't like his face, so he just doesn't show.
That's kind of the dream, right? You get to nobody can recognize you, but you're still famous.
Yeah, that was one of his deals. That was one of his things. Now, I bet you $50, Chris didn't sit down and say, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become the biggest, car automotive detailer, and I'm never going to show my face. And here's what it's going to turn into. And here's all the things." No. He didn't do any of that. He just started doing, and he just didn't put his face in the video, and he realized he liked that. So it's not the entrepreneur, couch surfer, leverage his life, fail until you get something right. You don't have to take that path. That's the cool thing about this. You can side hustle it. I side hustled it. Pretty much every content creator I know side hustled it, other than the children that are yell screaming nerd stuff on, the real big, channels that, and my daughter's watching. Like, these are nerds. They're just, other than them, most people didn't like sit there and craft a plan. Mm-hmm. Even them. And they were just being them, being their nerd self. And then they get 20 million subscribers and turn it into a business.
Right. And I do want to say I find it very inspiring that you hate editing, but still have done well on YouTube. So I've been doing YouTube for about 8 years, and my channel, Treesicle, was very editing intensive. Mm-hmm. So I worked on a team with 3 other people, and it probably took between 60 to 80 man hours to make a video. And a lot of that was editing, or script writing or whatever, just kind of sitting in a dark room by yourself, basically. And I got really good at editing over the years, but as time has gone on, I'm pretty sick of editing. I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out that next step, and I'm actively working on like, how can I make a YouTube channel work, but only edit maybe a little bit, but not drive myself
How did
crazy.
you convince yourself to sit there for 50 hours and edit?
Brute force and time. Like, seriously, that was it. It was like...
But did you hate it at the time?
In the very beginning, no. There was like this initial excitement with how well the channel was doing, and I was I always had a passion for video production as far back as middle school. So I was able to kind of like
it was innate,
do it,
right? Innate. It was built into you.
Yes.
And then what was the addiction? Was it the result?
The result was absolutely part of the addiction. The other part, I think, was expressing myself. So I'm the kind of guy where people would like chuckle at me in high school because I would zone out and I'd just be like staring at a wall. And I just have a lot of thoughts in my head. And that kind of plays out as being very philosophical and having these like sort of existential questions in my mind that needed answers. And my YouTube channel is about video games, but I would use video games to explore a lot of philosophical questions.
Sure.
And kind of give what I considered to be a unique perspective on the world. And so for me, it was really cathartic to get these ideas out of my head and into the world in a way that was coherent, because then it was like I was able to let these obsessive thoughts go. Like, now they're out there. You know, it was like my brain wanted me to think about these things for a reason, I figured. And then when I put them out there, it was more clear what the reason was. And the more I did that, the more, I guess, whole I felt.
Dopamine
it felt really
you
good.
would get, right. And so the editing was required, and you had an innate interest in editing, but the editing was required in order to get that dopamine hit of being able to engage and get this stuff out of your head. So I'm doing the same thing, but I'm washing a car. I'm detailing a car. I don't really like polishing the car, but I was addicted to the result of the car at the end, and addicted to the sharing and the engagement I got by not being alone. Right. And engaging other people. And the camera, believe it or not, makes me feel like I get all of the great parts of not being alone, but without having to deal with the person. You know?
I get it. Yeah.
It's like the camera is the object that gets me engaged. And you know, like if I go to a meet and greet or something, and not even that, but if I go to an event and I'm having to shake hands and kiss babies, it's exhausting. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I hate making small talk. And so the camera is a way for me to get all the engagement from other humans without all the baggage. And so I'm polishing the car for 30, 40 hours, and I'm editing, or let's not even call it editing. I'm patching the video together, just putting it together. I'm doing those things because of the dopamine hit I get at the end, the drug that is the engagement, the thing that I'm looking for. The thing that I'm looking for is the ability to stand on the pulpit and deliver my speech of cool stuff that I've discovered at the moment, which is super, super fulfilling and engaging. And then where you can see how complex this gets, and how do you then intertwine that into an existence, into a job, into into staying sane, into not alienating everybody around you. I mean, it's really complex. It's really complicated. But what you'll find is if you're built for it, it'll just kind of put itself together. I just don't think very many people sit down and storyboard their life. It just doesn't work that well. And you see the ones that do, doctors, famously, lawyers would do that kind of thing. I'm going to be valedictorian. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They're miserable. And they end up alcoholics and a heart attack at 50. I don't think you want that. I think part of the spice of this is being able to choose a path when a crossroads shows up. The really successful people are the ones that recognize it's a crossroads and are willing to change. That was the one superpower I had, is I recognized that I was at an impasse, and I melted down. And then eventually in 2018, I got fired from wealth management. I didn't leave. They walked me out the door. So imagine, I have again, I'm saying this for context. I'm making like $600,000 a year as an executive. Ooh. And they took it away. They just said no. And the reason I was fired was because I vlogged my life, and they thought I was too much of a risk. And I was talking about obsessive compulsive disorder. I was talking about it. I said something like, it takes me 15 minutes a month to manage $200 million for people. And they're like, you can't say that. I said, but it's true. I said, did you watch the rest of it? So funny. Where I said, but it's taking me 15 years to make it take 15 minutes of pure obsession. But you can't say that. Well, I just did. And then they walked me out the door, took it away. Best thing that ever happened to me. And so I side hustle now. Luckily, Obsessed Garage was already selling $300,000 a month of stuff. So I was able to make that transition. And before I knew it, I had, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 employees. And here we are today, 2 years later, coming up on 3 years in June, where I'm removed from wealth management. And, but it wasn't like I had like a burger flipping job. I was making $600,000 a year. And they just went to zero, from 600 to zero. And
dang.
But luckily it wasn't zero, because I had Obsessed Garage. It was making me something. And I was able to turn that on really, really quickly. And now, rest is history. And I don't even know how much money I make anymore, because now I have a business. I don't know. I'd probably make zero still, but the business satisfies my lifestyle. So that's what you find, is that your business becomes kind of your ATM card, if you will. That's kind of how it works. Now, for me, anything that I would want is what I want to make a video about. And so I really, other than food, and even then I make videos about food half the time. So anything that I wanted this microphone. I have making videos about a Shure SM7B and a Yellowtech mic boom. I've made videos about the Apollo Solo, that is the dongle here for to connect to the computer. I made videos about the Dynaudio speakers. So now my existence has become, I'm able to monetize everything that I'm doing, because people see value in it. I like speakers, so I sell speakers. I like detail spray, so I sell detail spray. I provide people. It's not even selling it; it's just providing a solution.
And it's interesting how it sounds like it was a crisis at the time when you were let go of this job. But often these kind of turning points could be really good. Like, they force you to think about what you actually want. Now this thing that you were depending on is gone. Like, where does that leave you? Who are you really? How can you really make this work? And I think those testing times could be really valuable.
It's funny, because that $600,000, the job, became such an inconvenience to what it is I really wanted to do, which was Obsessed Garage. And I thought the whole point of Obsessed Garage was to engage with people for me to manage their money. I didn't even like managing their money. Actually, I liked managing their money. I didn't like all the other stuff. Having to schmooze people. And, I was doing wine tastings. I don't drink wine. I don't drink anything. And I was doing golf lesson seminars, and I don't play golf. Why am I doing this? And I'm wearing a suit, but I don't like wearing a suit. Some people like wearing a suit. They like fashion. I hated it. Like, why am I doing this? And so when I started to get pushback, when I started to try to push the line, I'd call it obsessed wealth management. It was a perfect connection. I probably would have become one of the biggest financial advisors in the world, because I have the people that have money that are into cars and would want me to manage their money, because I was the guy to manage it. And that's what I was pushing towards, and I pushed it a little too hard. And they just thought it's a huge liability. And these 50-year-old white dudes that are in charge of this business don't see what's happening to the world. They don't care. They just need to survive another 5 or 10 years in the business and get out. So they don't want any disruption. which means that their business will probably fail, and it'll be replaced by something else. But I saw that, and I didn't want that, and so I thought I could push and create a modern, YouTube driven, social media driven, but passion driven, business, and I could just serve people that I had a lot in common with. Instead of just searching for anybody who had money that would let me manage it, I was searching for very specific people that I really enjoyed engaging with. And through that came the realization that it was an inconvenience. Why am I even doing that? I should be selling pressure washers. I should be providing people with curated solutions of complex products. And I should be building out, the great part for me is that all the different parts of the business. So I fell in love with cameras, passionate about cameras. Then I fell in love with shipping algorithms and how do I ship things. And I fell in, so I'm falling in love with all these processes. I fell in love with shelving. Like, how am I going to put all the stuff on the shelves, not shelves, but the shelves. How am I going to put stuff on it? So then I didn't want shelves that had wire racking. I wanted them to be flat. And so I'm chasing that kind of stuff and just recognizing all of these opportunities to build a business while sharing it. And then, rest is history. Who knows where it's going, but I don't understand or can't comprehend where it's going from here. But I'm becoming better at recognizing and being okay with whatever happens is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I think that idea of you wearing a suit for all these years, even though you didn't like wearing a suit, can be valuable, especially to anybody who's listening who feels like they're wearing a suit, but they don't want to be.
Yes.
I think if you spend enough time doing something that you aren't, then you kind of like, it teaches you who you are. So even though like when you're in the thick of it, it feels frustrating, like you're being constrained. It's when you're able to leave that job or whatever it is that you feel like is holding you back, you now have this experience of, that isn't for you. And that has kind of taught you who you really are. So you can kind of do the opposite, so to speak, or something way different. And now you have a level of confidence that you didn't have before. Because maybe if you didn't do that, there would be a voice in the back of your head that's tripping you up that's saying like, hey man, what if you had just gotten a normal job and you got the stable income and you wouldn't have to deal with all this chaotic nonsense of starting your own business. But now that you had done it, you don't have that voice anymore because you know how it makes you feel. So you don't want to do it. And knowing that is so valuable because you can start acting on what you want to do without questioning it.
Here's the microcosm. I'm just identifying this as we're talking. So just kind of giving you a little background, other background in my life. So when I was 15 through age 18, I was a janitor. And I was I didn't like that, but I was a very high performing janitor. When I left my janitor position, I didn't become a sucky janitor. I was still a world-class poop scooper, world-class cleaner. And then I became a postal worker. And I was an extremely high performing postal, delivering mail as a casual carrier in college, just as a summer job. To give you an example, I had a 13-mile route that was supposed to take 8 hours. It would take me 2. I would just run.
Wow.
It was nonsense. It was a government job. Even though it was 13 miles, you can move at a good clip. And so I would try to do faster and faster and faster. And so when I left that job, I was a very high performer. I didn't just give up and quit and make it take 10 and because I hated it. And then when I left that job in college, I got a job selling home theater. When I left my home theater sales position to go to Merrill Lynch and work in wealth management, I was the number one salesperson in the area. When I left Merrill Lynch, I just told you I was making $600,000 a year. So there's a microcosm here that I wasn't the best. I wasn't number one in anything I was doing, but I was a high performer. That's a microcosm of if you're in a suit. I didn't like being in a suit. I didn't like cleaning poop off the floor. I didn't like delivering mail. But I didn't sit there, woe is me, and I was I did the best I could do at whatever it is I was doing my entire life. Probably not, actually, I take that back. I didn't do the best I could do, but I did really well. I always feel like you could do better. Being a perfectionist, I feel like, man, I always felt like I underperformed. But if you feel like you're overperforming and so you shut down, guess what you're going to do when you have your own business and you get bored with it? You're going to shut her down. You're not going to make that nice, smooth transition. You're going to end up on somebody's couch. So if I could provide any advice to anybody, it's do the best you can do at whatever it is you're doing, flipping burgers, cleaning poop, driving taxi, being an Uber driver, whatever you're doing, you be the best, because it's going to be a microcosm of the rest of your life. So if you're sitting there, man, I hate wearing a suit. I hate this. I want to be a video creator. And then you become a video creator and you make this, like you'd mentioned earlier, Grant, you're talking about, people, they make it out like it's all roses and butterflies. If you're going to do the same thing to yourself, you're going to sabotage yourself again. So I'm just recognizing this theme. I never even there's another job, and there was a cart pusher at Walmart. This is the only job I ever quit. But I was the guaranteed best cart pusher they ever had, and probably ever since. There was no incentive for you to be a better cart pusher. You didn't get any more money, but I just wanted to get the job done. I wanted to get it done right for me. And so even though the reason why I quit is because they were yelling at me for taking too many carts at once because of the liability issue. I was taking 50 at once. You're only supposed to take 10. But I wanted to take 50 so I could get it done and I can get better shape and I could get something out of what it is I was doing and become more efficient. And so if you can be a high performer in all things you're doing, whether you're wearing a suit and you don't want to or not, that's going to lead to, now I'm doing the same thing in Obsessed Garage. I'm probably not the best Obsessed Garage guy I could be, but I'm pretty darn good at it. And if should the universe or should God or whatever you believe in, should that drive me to the next thing, you better darn believe I'm going to be high performing at Obsessed Garage. I'm not going to just quit and shut her down and occupy a seat. Because if you occupy a seat in your own business, you're freaking screwed. You're screwed.
Well, Matt, this has been awesome. I really love your perspective on things and your motivations, and it's been really great to hear about how you've got to where you are today. And I appreciate you coming on here. Why don't you tell people where they can find you and pitch yourself and whatever you want to tell people?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to go check out the website of obsessedgarage.com. My new site is going to be really cool, destinationobsessedgarage.com, DOG. I got to figure out that abbreviation. Destination OG is what we're calling it, not dog. But Destination OG is where I'm going to be doing a lot of these cool things where I'm going to be buying properties all over the country and letting people borrow them for money. We're not going to call it rent. We're going to call it borrowing, because when you borrow somebody's tool, you return it better than when you got it. Everybody's dad taught them that. So on Instagram, Obsessed Garage, on YouTube, Obsessed Garage, Facebook, Obsessed Garage. We do have a Facebook group if you're an obsessed person. It's not just about garage; it's about anything you're passionate about. So we have a Facebook group with 44,000 other crazy people. You can go check that out. And then Inside the Hex is on obsessedgarage.com is my inside. So if you like business stuff, that's where I talk about the business and life, and remembering that business is just an excuse to be in relationship. It's not, it's not all about X's and O's and numbers and details. It's about relationship. And from someone who really struggles with relationship, it's everything to do with, this, what we're talking about here. So, creating all this stuff and then building platforms to share it is what we're talking about. And so all those things I'd mentioned is where I've built my platform and where I share it. And so that's where you'd find me.
Right on. Matt Moreman of Obsessed Garage, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Matt, for coming on the show. And I will see you, whoever you are watching this right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.